Hi, everybody. My name is Natalie Yeadon. I'm the CEO and co-founder with Impetus Digital. At Impetus Digital, we have built some of the best-in-class asynchronous and synchronous virtual collaboration and communication tools. We have worked with life science companies from across the globe over the past 13 years to help them with everything from virtual advisory boards, online medical education, virtual investigator meetings. And since the launch of our award-winning Insight Events platform, we've also been helping pharmaceutical companies with large virtual corporate events, MSL and sales rep training, innovation hackathons, and everything in between. But more importantly at Impetus, we really believe that everything starts with the conversation. And from these big, hairy, audacious conversations with some of the leading edge thinkers, the digital provocateurs, and the healthcare thought leaders, we can all work together to collectively and positively disrupt healthcare. So I'm really excited to having one of some of these digital thought leaders at the table with me today. So I'd like to introduce you to Yaron Segal. He is actually, with his established and notable expertise in atmospheric sciences, Yaron was driven by his son's diagnosis of familial dysautonomia. Thank you, to develop BrainQ's protocols and pioneered the founding of the company. As Chief Innovation Officer and co-founder of BrainQ, Yaron leads the continued development of the device's protocols and neuroscience research. Yaron is also the co-founder of the IARD Institute for Advanced R&D, which researches meteorology, atmospheric sciences, satellite imaging processing, as well as satellite data analysis. After completing his PhD, master's, and bachelor's of science in atmospheric sciences, Yaron completed his postdoc in atmospheric sciences with a focus on cloud modeling and the effect of climate and aerosols on cloud droplet spectra development. I also have at the table with me the CEO of BrainQ, Yotam Drechsler. Yotam specializes in the execution of the strategic development of BrainQ's novel technology. Together with his team of top-ranked data science and neuroscience experts, he has led the company in creating a non-invasive solution for neurological recovery that is on track to market. And as a former Boston Consulting Group strategy consultant, Yotam worked alongside senior managers of top multinational companies across the globe, implementing large-scale, multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisition activities. He was awarded the BCG 2015 Award of Excellence. Yotam currently serves as a Google Launchpad mentor. He is also a member of the Forbes Technology Council and McKinsey & Company's Health Tech CEO Forum. He holds a BA in mathematics, cognitive science, and computer science, and an MA in financial economics. Welcome, both of you. So happy to have you on the show.
We're happy to be here.
I will have to tell you, I mean, pretty broad stroke, very impressive backgrounds, and quite frankly, very, very different. And so I was just curious, maybe we can start with you, Yotam, and then after with you, Yaron, if you can explain a little bit about your career, the trajectory, and how you end up founding and starting BrainQ.
Sure. So I can go first, even though Yaron's story, I think, is more interesting than mine. So as you said, my background was in math, computer science, cognitive sciences. I think that I picked the three, even though I had no idea what I'm going to do with them. And I ended up being interested in a position where Steve Jobs been, where you kind of had connecting the dots between things you've learned. But the truth was that after my time in university, I went towards the business world and worked with multinational companies. And at some point, I was looking to do something which would have, I would say, impact on society and being able to, I think, change the world, if you want, in a very naive way. It was right after my son was born, around November 2015, when I first heard about this brilliant researcher walking around Jerusalem and has this innovative idea that may change the world, that some friend of mine introduced me to him, and that is when I met Yaron, and kind of the rest is history. I must say that first time meeting him, it was for about like 3 hours in a coffee shop. I would kind of sit and listen. I would be a bit kind of half believe how could this kind of work. I had to kind of go back home, start doing my own diligence to realize, I mean, what it all means. And I realized that if he's upright in his, way he goes, this could really be a dramatic change to lives for millions of patients worldwide. And that's where I ended up deciding to join him, and ever since we're together. And I landed to Yaron.
Actually, the story starts about 20 and a half years ago. My son Leo was born, and as you said, he was diagnosed at 3 months with familial dysautonomia. And when he was diagnosed, the first question we asked the doctor is, what can we do about it? How can we help him? And the doctor raised his hand and said, well, you live with it. This is it. And I'm a physicist. Physicists are very simple people. We get a problem, we try to solve it. We don't accept not solving a problem. So I started looking out for what's the cause of his disability, first of all, and later on, how can I resolve it? And after a long walks with him in the street of Jerusalem, I came up with an idea. And in the beginning, it will sound crazy. If you can send something to the brain, and the brain has some kind of plasticity, and it can recover, and it can rebuild itself, which is what I want to do to his autonomic nervous system. And I started experimenting by myself, and not long after my experimenting showed some promising results, let's just say, I realized 2 things. One, I have a great idea here that can help a lot of people, not just my son. And second of all, I'm not a businessman. And then I was looking for somebody who can raise this thing beyond the theory and the protocols and the science and the computer science and everything else to something which means business. And then I started mingling, and I met a nice woman by the name Stav, and she said, I know a person, Yotam, I'll talk to him. And we set an appointment, and usually the appointment started 10 minutes we schedule, and it's end up after 3 or 4 hours. And we sat there and we talked. I don't think Yotam really knew what he was getting into. And sometimes I think that if he knew that this is going to be the struggle, he would run away. But he joined it. And since then, we separate our co-working is I live in the business and he's good at business. And I'm trying to pull the science to where I want it to go. And eventually it started to, build up. We started as 2 people in one room somewhere in the university. And now we end up as over 30 people in both the side of the globe, United States and Israel. And it's a wonderful team to work with. Everybody comes to work every day knowing that it's not just work that they do, and it has something to do with people. They see what the results we have, what the impact.
Yes.
But they see
I will tell her about the technology in a second if you want.
Yeah, but the thing is, people come and they see the impact that it can do to people. And I think this is the main motivation of our company.
Beautiful. Absolutely love it. So let's actually, I'm going to have you start your own and then move to Yotam. Let's actually just start with the problem statement, right? So we said that there was a problem, but overarchingly, there was a bigger problem, a more robust idea around brain, the way the brain works, what the components of the brain. Tell us a little bit about how you determined what the problem statement was and what is it that you were trying to solve?
Can I actually take this one? If you don't mind?
Sure, absolutely.
I want to state you the problem maybe in a somewhat different way. We are now in 2022. By 2030, every 1 of 5 people is going to be 65 and above. Stroke, our first indication to market, every 1 of 4 is going to have a stroke. Stroke is a very classic example for healthcare system because in the past 50 years, we got really good in terms of keeping patients alive following stroke. It used to be kind of a number 1, number 2 cause of death. It's probably went all the way towards number 5 right now in the US because new technologies, new interventions, acute interventions that got patients quickly into hospital and had them survive for many more years after a stroke, which is a great thing. I think we have made a lot of progress in that perspective. Having said that, if you think about what happens to a patient once he survives a stroke, we have made little to almost no advancement in over a century. So the standard of care for stroke is still today physical therapy, something that has been invented in the 19th century. And stroke is the #1 cause for long-term disability. And long-term disability implies on your ability to live alone, grab this glass of water yourself, dress alone. It's your day-to-day. It's not just whether or not you live, it's what kind of life you're going to have and what kind of life your family will have. And if you think about the numbers of stroke, there are 100 million stroke survivors worldwide. It implies, and each one of them has a family and has friends, it implies that this is a society level of problem. And the truth is that it's a problem that we have to deal with for many, many years. That has huge implications from a cost perspective, and life quality perspective. And our healthcare system is not currently, I would say, designed to treat it. Why? Because you have to have an effective treatment, but also one at a very different scale than anything that you have today. The numbers are massive. So it wouldn't help if I have kind of this brain surgery that will be able to fix the brain, but could also only be applied for 5,000 patients a year when you have millions of patients out there. Okay, you have to do something which is scalable, and you have to do something which is accessible, because these patients live at home with their families, and all cost pressures of healthcare system is to get them home as quickly as possible. And you cannot treat them in hospitals. You don't have enough of a team in the hospital to treat them. You don't have enough of rooms and beds and so forth. So you need to treat at home at scale, in an accessible, patient-friendly way, and you have to create a new effective standard of care to meet this. And this is kind of, we're kind of in this Titanic, gradually going towards the iceberg of 2030, and whoever is there, I mean, whoever has experienced it will tell you it is a huge challenge, a society level challenge, and this is something that imminently need to be changed. BrainQ's objective is to completely change this standard of care, bringing in a substantially more effective therapy that could actually be scaled to millions of patients in an accessible way when they're at home, and also to manage their journey, because stroke is not kind of a one-time thing. You can just intervene for 5 minutes and that's it. Stroke is something that you have to live between the day you had it towards the rest of your life, like any other chronic state or disorder, and that brings it to a very different kind of a challenge than I would say most companies need to deal with, but with an impact factor or a scale of impact that you could do that can dramatically change life across the globe.
Yeah, that's a really, really fantastic sort of setting the stage, if you will, for BrainQ coming in and helping to try to solve that very, very widespread and explosive issue that we're, like you were saying, about to encounter. So I'm wanting to punt this over to you, Yaron. So want to have an understanding if, physiotherapy or, the different ways of getting people back into their day-to-day or their mental functioning is not really the long-term option, or is something that is scalable. Tell us a little bit about the technology and the solution that you have come up with at BrainQ.
The general idea is that any neurological problem is where a system loses connection between neurons. And neurons, one of the things that they can do, and they do it as we speak, they connect with each other to regain or add new functions to what they used to do. The problem that I found out that in Lear's condition and later on in many neurological disorders is that there is lack of connection between the cells. So the idea was how to promote the brain to do what it's doing normally, to regain new connection between cells. As following his peers' physiotherapy and other things, I realized that making an activity is the way to reconnect brain cells together. However, we do it differently. When we speak for now, something goes in your brain. Your brain generates waves that somehow promote new connection between cells. What we are doing is we are imitating those similar brain waves to impaired brain, promoting real connection like normal people would do. This is the high level of the technology. But once you can identify patterns related to function or ability to do something, and you transmit it to a non-healthy brain, you promote those cells that are eager to connect with each other, to do the connection, and while you're training yourself also, because just promoting connection doesn't really mean there is going to be connections. When you practice, then you can make the connection and regain functions that you might have lost. This is the basic theory.
I don't know if I can do
Yotam,
a
so taking it over to you, Yotam. So that is sort of the premise or the science behind. We were talking about electromagnetic fields and aiding neurorecovery that way. Tell us a little bit about what the mechanism is. So what tool set have you created to bring these waves in front of a potential patient?
So I think a lot of our challenge was how do we take a scientific concept that comes from a physics perspective and make it into a product. Okay, and a product has to have kind of a clear value prop to it. I mean, a clear, there is a customer, there is a patient, there needs to be a clear value prop that you could actually bind together all these, I think, big ideas into reality. I don't know if I can do a share screen, but if you want to allow me, I can actually show it to you. So we're not going to kind of share a lot of slides. I mean, just one. So this is how our product looks like. Eventually, we have developed a therapeutic system. This system is a cloud-based one, and it's connected to a wearable medical device. This medical device creates frequency-tuned, low-intensity electromagnetic field therapy. This frequency-tuned, low-intensity electromagnetic field therapy aims to do what Yaron has nicely described before. It aims to kind of imitate these natural patterns of brainwaves back into our center of nervous system in order to kind of facilitate endogenous recovery mechanisms. Okay, and we can talk about the mechanism more, but I actually want to give you a bit more about the technology, because I mean there are a lot of interesting features in what we see right now. This device has been designed to be used at home. What does it mean? It means that it's a wearable medical device that could be used by a 75-year-old caregiver to be dressed on say an 8-year-old stroke survivor in a minute or so, and after a very short training. We have taken something which was as big as a room, okay, to create an electromagnetic field. That's been kind of our original design, and we have managed to shrink it into something which weighs about 5 pounds, and it can easily be administered into the patient and all cloud connected. We have designed it in a way where you have a tablet, and within the tablet you would have embedded telemedicine tools. You would have the physical therapy regime. So we're not here to actually replace physical therapy. We're here to amplify its potential. And we believe physical therapy is important, but it needs to be accompanied by this kind of a fertilizer, if you want. And we're also managing to standardize the physical therapy regime and be able to create a monitoring system for therapists to be able to administer this therapy at scale to more patients in parallel. So, so this device has been, again, designed to connect to the cloud and allow to provide this therapy. The therapy by itself, I'm going back to a kind of full screen, is a very patient-friendly one based on its safety profile. So we're currently in a study that runs as a non-significant risk in the US and several different sites. And in general, it uses very, very low intensity, one that is below the threshold for public exposure. And the idea behind it is the idea that Yaron has said about facilitating recovery mechanisms that has to do with impaired networks in the brain following an injury by imitating their kind of natural signatures.
Beautiful. Wow. Fascinating and really, really interesting. We hear a lot about, when you're many years ago, we once believed that brain cells can't repair, and that if something tragic happened, that was kind of the end of that. We have since heard a lot of neuroscientists speaking about the idea of neuroplasticity. So I was curious, Yaron, if you can talk a little bit about how this technology specifically is going to help to open the neuroplasticity periods associated with nerves, and how you're looking at improving or rebuilding these dead brain cells, if you will, to get somebody back into regular order.
I do want to say, before we put in this, I think that this is a very delicate topic. The first thing that we should be saying as a company is that there is a lot that we don't know, and every day we learn more about how much we don't know. Okay, I'm being very transparent with you. Anybody who is working into neuroscience has to acknowledge this phenomena. And I think that we also have to treat it with a lot of caution when we speak, because given the unknowns today, you have to tell what exactly is the entire mechanism of action and how exactly it works. I think there is a lot that we need to learn. We are very fortunate to work with some of the best experts. I think the leading minds in this field around. I mean, most of them are in the U.S. In preclinical collaborations, and we learn every day. But the first thing to say is we're not. We don't have the full picture, and also that we're not kind of reviving a dead cell or a bad cell. Okay, I think this is something that we have to be very clear about. I think what we are trying to say is that we are exploiting a potential. What we believe we're doing, I would say, is that we're exploiting a potential that exists there for reorganization of networks that anyways is a potential that exists following stroke, but we are managing to facilitate it better. I mean, to encourage your brain to get there better. Yaron, do you agree with me?
I would say that we target neural networks. We don't target cells. The cells that died, we cannot revive them because they are dead. But those cells were connected to other cells which are not dead, but they're lacking communication between them. So as learning or as reconnecting between cells can regain the function between cells that are still surviving the stroke, but they're not there to be connected because the cell in connection between them is no longer there, but they are seeking connections. Everybody knows that you can read the new book, you can have new ideas even at the age of 80 or 90. The plasticity of the brain, or the brain ability to adjust itself to new things, doesn't change with time. The only thing is that after stroke or after major brain injury, the brain is so occupied with so many things that it's not focused on reviving exactly the same system that was damaged during the stroke or the damage itself. What our device is doing is focusing treatment on the specific network, giving it more ability to regain function or more connecting itself than normal conditions where the brain is scattered for all other things that are damaged or lacking there. Like they have fear, they have panic, they have depression, they have a lot of things that are disturbing those connections from happening because the brain is occupied with a lot of other things. We're focusing on a single system or single network, so to speak, and giving it most of the potential to reconnect. This is what differs us from.
I think that we're also trying to kind of take a lot of complicated concepts now and kind of I would say make them accessible in a simpler way on a webinar. But I think that the general idea is exactly as Yaron said, and eventually it is us trying to really facilitate a natural process, a very delicate one. Okay, a very kind of a butterfly effect, if you want. And hopefully help the brain do what it can do best by himself, find its own way for recovery. So we believe we do so by imitating these networks patterns, and as I said, there is a lot that we could potentially learn. The most critical thing to say is that eventually what we are doing and what we aim to do is to do it in a very patient-friendly and hopefully in a very high safety profile because we do want to treat at scale. We do want to be able to treat so many patients and be able to treat them at home. A huge unmet need that I think has been revealed or been back into the table following the COVID-19 and the need to treat patients at home and not in clinic.
Absolutely, and that is a really well said. I said making it very accessible in this new environment that we're in right now. So it's so well said. So I'm actually also just curious with this idea, Yaron, we've talked a lot about the stroke, and I'm just wondering, COVID-19. I'm just wondering, is there other anticipated neurological disorders that this technology could be used for? And I'm also just curious also how artificial intelligence has built certain algorithms and I guess certain waves, if you will, that are being fed into people's brains, and how machine learning might be involved in N=1 or the individual's recuperation. So tell us a little bit about how AI interfaces here.
The thing
maybe
is
you
that
take the first one and I'll take the second one.
Okay.
Tell me more about the, I think the next indications in the pipeline. I'll talk a bit more about the AI from that perspective.
The thing is that our brain works all the time. All the system works all the time. You sense things, you see things, you hear things, you feel things. Everything's working all the time in the brain. So when you take a measurement of the brain waves, you measure all of the brain, all the time. And you cannot, and in signal processing, there is noise and there's signal. But here, some part of the noise is other signals that which are similar to the signals that you want to measure that are out there all the time. What we're doing with machine learning and AI is to try to distill the patterns that are interesting us. We build a paradigm of testing that amplifies one or more networks that we are interested in, and then we measure them, and we measure the whole brain. And AI and machine learning, we try to distill from all of this information of many people, different times, different occasions in the day, which is also a variant. We try to get the specific brain waves related to the function that we are testing. Mm. It's a complicated way. It's a complicated work. It's a very tedious work. And sometimes, as I can say, we measure too much to get very little. And that's what we're doing in the science part, trying to figure out exactly what is related to what is being done. Afterwards, after we pick up those patterns and we transmit it to the person, we're looking for a clinical change. We want to see that there is a new function or a regained function coming up of the person. I will not elaborate more because it's very complicated. It's a big software doing that for us. And we have a team of about 7 scientists working on that to distill those specific patterns that we later on transmit to people.
I will say that this is always a delicate point because, again, we are developing a therapy that needs to go and treat patients and, of course, get the regulatory approvals. Data analysis tools like machine learning, eventually machine learning is a buzzword, but it's a tool. It's a tool to retrieve biological insights. Okay, I think that it's a very important advancement that in the past decade, people that are doing kind of neuroscience and science in general have been started to use and apply advanced data science tools in order to retrieve back insights. And this is what BrainQ is doing. The important thing to say is that we are doing it in a very delicate way. It's kind of an analysis. But then, I mean, when have in mind that as a product that aims at getting an FDA in the future, as well as being able to treat at scale, we are also very careful to make sure that we are applying everything in a very clear way and one that would not jeopardize any complications that could come by using these tools. So these tools are being used in a very kind of in a research environment and not kind of in a clinical environment. And we are and we learn a lot by using them. And the implications, by the way, are vast. So it's not just stroke. Yaron's theory and Yaron's approach, if you want, I think the more we dig in, we understand how it lies within almost every single neuro disorder out there. And even nowadays, there are several other indications in our pipeline, including PD and AD and MS and so forth. And we do believe that we in the next few years, you will see more and more of them in clinical trials in the US and in other places. So yes, this is really a platform for therapies, and every single indication needs kind of its own delicate, I would say, approach by us. But the fundamentals, it's the product, the approach, the infrastructure we have created is the same. And that allows us really to, create more of a one-stop shop solution towards these patients in need.
Yeah. So Yaron, I do have a question for you. We hear a lot about people trying to modulate their brain waves, everything from meditation apps, to technologies as simple as something called Muse, to ECGs, to, even people listening to binaural beats. And we even hear like sound light entrainment. Tell us a little bit about why yours is so much different or better than all of these other sort of tools that are available in more a B2C or a consumer market.
It's a tough question. The thing is that most of those things are related to healthy people that can manipulate their brains. The problem with somebody who having the difficulty is that this specific system that we want to fix is not working. So you cannot operate something that doesn't work because it's damaged. We are targeting the systems that are not working, not the systems that are working. For example, we can transmit meditation to somebody, but does it help him to move his hand? We can transmit anything like Muse is doing, for example, to concentrate. Will it help somebody to regain the function that is lost? We are targeting those systems that are affected by damage. We're not trying to promote something that the person can do by himself, because, for example, people can meditate without the Muse. I've tried to do, by the way, we have the Muse for testing. I tried it, but I can meditate without it. I don't need it. It's just a tool helping me to do something. But if I would not be able to meditate at all, it will not help me, because the brain cells that usually work for meditation will not be there. What our treatment is doing is promoting the plasticity in those systems that are damaged, promoting connection between places that are not connected. This is the difference between our systems and other systems and the existing systems, because we are trying to help people regain something that they don't have, not something to emphasize something that they already have.
I think that, from my side, you have compared us to a lot of systems, which none of them is really therapeutic. BrainQ is, I told you kind of a problem statement when we saw that. The problem statement I stated was one that implies millions of patients every single year on a worldwide basis that have no other solution right now. Nothing is in the guidelines really to treat them. Aside from maybe physical therapy and so forth, but no clear technology or drug that could actually substantially recover them. So, the first thing to say is like, everybody is welcome. There is enough of a problem for everyone. Okay. And the second one is that if you think about our solution, it's actually differentiated on several levels. Yes. So it aims to do a therapeutic effect, and our studies are being designed to show this clear effect on gold standard of meaningfully clinical impact. And I think we were fortunate to have some of, our steering committee, our PIs, and the academic sites we are working with in the US are really some of the top ones in the world, and we are very fortunate to have them. I think they are all in this study because we have managed to demonstrate a clear signal that we could provide this kind of an outcome, a very untrivial statement on a randomized double-blind study that not many, if any, has provided in the past. The other thing is that the kind of technology that we use has been designed for scale. And again, so it's not just the effect, it's about whether or not you can treat a scale of patients. And again, I think this is many of the things you said, I don't think they even pretend to go this way. And even if I can mention you other technologies in stroke rehab or stroke recovery, and I don't think many of them can talk about the scaling of their technology. because just by definition, it's kind of a lot of CapEx, skilled personnel and so forth, a lot of things that would not allow it. And accessibility, being able to treat a patient at home with a cloud-based system, and embedded telemedicine and so forth. It's a very much of a one-stop shop solution, not just for the efficacy, but for something which is much more granular than that. I think we were very bold from first day in terms of stating this kind of a mission statement and actually developing a solution that gets all the way. And of course, it is in our responsibility now to kind of get it through all the approvals and hopefully get it towards the market and towards patients. But if it works as we expect, this can be a dramatic change. This is not one more increment, okay?
Yeah. So this is fantastic. And, I know that your product has been awarded the FDA breakthrough device designation. I was just curious, I'm going to start with you, Yaron, and then to you, Yotam. This may be my last question for the day, is what is currently what is your planned business model? We have a lot of pharmaceutical and medical device companies that listen to our podcast. They might be interested as how do they use this? How do they integrate it? How do they partner with you? And ultimately, who is going to be
not a businessman?
Yeah, who is going to be the business? Who is going to be the paying customer? So we'll start with you, Yaron, and we'll end with you, Yotam.
But that's but he's not a businessman. He is the science man.
Now, I would say that my goal in BrainQ is, you see, I see little peers at school. I see people in physiotherapy. I see people, children with CP. I see many other things. My goal with BrainQ was from the beginning to bring as much therapy and help to as many people, because you cannot, when somebody is healthy and everything is okay, you can talk about money and you can talk about other things. But when somebody has a stroke and he cannot go to the bathroom, or somebody has a spinal cord injury and he cannot do this, which is, it's a minor thing, but when you have an itch in your head and nobody can scratch it for you, it can destroy your life. My goal is to bring as many therapies to as many people as possible, taking those boundaries that were cast on them by chance or whatever, and give them a better life. When I speak to people, I say to them that we are living like in a home. We have living room, we have bathroom, we have kitchen, we have bedroom, we have corridor. One day somebody comes and shut out half of our home. I want to build new rooms to the people so they can have a different home, but they will have a new life. The problem is that many people today stays in corridor, and I want to get them out of there and open them new things that they can do. And as I said in the beginning, I'm not a businessman. So Yotam,
I will say that Yaron's vision, when he first came to me, I was actually quite skeptical, because if you were to look at medical device companies, they often actually go the other way around. They would kind of build a fancy high capex medical device that's going to sit within the hospital within a big room, and then you're going to charge a lot of money. You can try to sell it, and it was actually pushing the other way around to go kinds of at scale and make it accessible to as many patients as possible. Exactly as you just said it to you now. This has been the same way, he told it to me 6 years ago. The reality is we actually went Yaron's way when we developed our business model. And when we have designed our product to be used at home, by definition, in an accessible way, we've designed it towards being what's called a DME, a durable medical equipment. The one that you could actually, who's going to pay is, of course, the question is, who is your payer, and us being able to build the right kind of relationships and then coding and coverage by the payers. But one can imagine that a significant portion of stroke patients are 65 and above, and that implies that Medicare is likely going to be one of the largest payers on the table. And just to reflect, Medicare, based on a research from several years ago, I think 10.7% of their spending was about stroke. So, I think it's an imminent need for payers as well. If we could provide a therapy that could be shown to be effective, this will dramatically also decrease the cost and I'm talking about direct costs as well as indirect costs for these patients. Even a DME product implies that you often get a prescription from a doctor, and then patients get it distributed. And I mean, without getting into the details, they are using it, listening it for a period of, say, 3 months in our case, and then getting the treatment, and then you could continue. I mean, and then every single patient kind of gets the device, and we are managing the system, if you like. There are a lot of nuances here, but the world of home care, and I would say connected care or advanced home care, actually brings to the table, I think, new kinds of business models. And we do already see a shift in terms of how providers and payers are thinking about home care, and it will continue to shape in the next 5 years. So I think that what we want to make sure is that we are at the table when we with the right kind of stakeholders to make sure that this blends into the greater picture of how healthcare would be delivered in 2030. And I believe we are getting towards. I mean, we are on the right track to be there. And I think we are very, very fortunate to be really in the forefront of a much greater movement towards an extended home care approach that would dramatically change lives of so many patients out there, like Yaron envisioned in the first place.
Beautiful. Fantastic. What a great vision. Really, really enjoyed the conversation, Yotam and Yaron. Anybody who is really intrigued by the conversation, who's been listening to this, we encourage you to check out our show notes below. They have the contact details for both of these individuals. If you're interested in connecting, partnering, utilizing some of this technology for some of your clinical trials. So we welcome you to do that. Please also check out impetusdigital.com. These are the kinds of conversations we have all the time with sponsors, with physicians, allied healthcare providers, patients, payers, having discussions about these kinds of technologies, doing things that are innovative, moving the agenda forward. And we do these through a series of asynchronous and synchronous touch points with our clients. Please check us out on and subscribe to YouTube as well as to our podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. And we'd really appreciate if you could leave us some feedback on iTunes. Thanks to everybody for your time. And thank you, Yotam and Yaron, for a fantastic conversation today.